Are we actually going to be seeing a 3-day ceasefire like Vladimir Putin wants? That's the biggest question going around right now. And heading into now that time frame in which it's supposed to start, it doesn't look likely. Let's go ahead and kind of back up for a second here and talk about what has led up to this and where we are today. You may recall that this weekend is the Victory Parade, in which Putin usually holds a massive military parade to celebrate the end of World War II. Now, what's weird is the fact that you're celebrating winning a war, while at the same time raging a war in another country, yet you're not doing that well. If you go back, 80% of the land in which Russia tried to take, Ukraine has it back. Russia is losing a crazy amount of men. We're getting ready to round out to 1 million people lost, or that's either to killed in action and or casualties just on the Russian side alone. And that alone number, let's be honest here, it's probably underreported. It's probably a lot higher than that. That being said, Vladimir Putin really wanted to have this parade so that he can welcome in world leaders and they would all feel safe. Now, in an ideal world, Vladimir Putin would have said, hey, Ukraine, let's do a 30-day ceasefire and we'll see what happens there. But because Putin and Russia really have no mindset to really want to end this war because there's enough pressure, they don't really care. So Vladimir Putin said, hey, let's have a 3-day one. See, clearly we want to work with you and have some kind of ceasefire. But Zelenskyy fired back by saying, hey, look, let's start with 30 days. Just start it now. Let's go with 30 days. Vladimir Putin said no. So Ukraine says, then what are we doing here? Because clearly you know as much as I do, the second that this is over, you're just going to go ham. And now every single intelligence report we can get our hands on, every picture is showcasing that Russia is doing the exact opposite of de-escalating this war. They're training, they're amassing more men in certain areas, including Belarus on the border with Sumy and towards Zaporizhia. Russia isn't getting ready to slow down. If anything, they're getting ready to speed up. And Vladimir Putin is using this parade in order to connect with a lot of these world leaders, whether it be China, whether it be India, you name it. They're there to have a connection and say, hey, look, we need X, Y, and Z. This is all this is. While it may look like a parade, it really is not. And so over the past few days, you've seen a lot of things on the news, whether it's Russia sending, like I think today was 168 drones and 5 ballistic missiles into Ukraine, or Ukraine sending over 100 drones into Moscow area and or other places inside of Russia. Actually, we're going into the third night in which Ukraine has been sending drones, and the second night in a row in which Moscow had to stop some of its airplanes from coming in because there's too many drones in the sky. Now, Ukraine, they've been going after military targets. We know that an airfield in which some of the aircraft that were going to be used was hit. I'm not really quite sure if there's been confirmation if one of these planes had been damaged. There was some information about that, but nothing was ever really truly confirmed. And Ukraine went after different facilities, military facilities, remember. Everything is military here. One that does fiber optics, another one that makes munitions, and Ukraine's going after legitimate military targets, while Russia, on the other hand, still going after civilians, in which today we saw a drone attack a residential building. Yesterday, we saw the Dream Mall inside of Kyiv. There is two. It's the one northern, I believe, of the city. Just straight up hit it. And it was hit hard. You could see the explosion in the videos. That thing was, Russia targeted that. They hit it, exploded, and it was absolutely awful on how much damage was there. That mall is not operating for quite some time. And all the intelligence, once again, that comes in states that Russia isn't planning on stopping, even during their 3-day ceasefire. Remember, they did one for Easter in which Russia violated it within minutes. As Putin was declaring it, an hour later, drones went off. Top of that, they went after multiple cities during the hours in between and on Easter. So you have to say to yourself, Vladimir Putin clearly wouldn't even agree to his own 1-day or 30-hour ceasefire. What makes you think he's going to agree to a 3-day one, which right now it is past midnight in Kyiv. And as far as we could see, there is no ceasefire. Vladimir Putin just wanted to say something public so that, I think maybe the world leaders that are coming would feel a little bit safer. But realistically speaking, as Zelenskyy said during many interviews, we can't protect you. there's no way that we can protect you inside of Russia. Because while, yeah, maybe we would stop sending drones, doesn't mean that Russia's not going to do something. It doesn't mean that Russia would do a provocation in which they would, do an explosion and blame Ukraine in hopes that that gives them more support, or these other countries go, maybe we should give them more weapons because Ukraine's the bad people here. When realistically speaking, the people going know that Russia's the bad guy, but they have partnerships like China, in which, China, they manufacture a lot of parts for Russia. Okay, a lot of parts are used in weapons and other kind of equipment, and without China's manufacturing, Russia cannot build the drones or the missiles or other components to keep their war machine going. Also keep in mind that Russia sells gas and oil to all of these countries, and so Putin wants to increase that rate, even though they're dropping the price. They're trying to increase the amount that's going there so they can make more money, so they can buy more weapons, so they can continue their war. It's just this giant cycle of Russia just finding ways to get more money so they can buy more weapons to attack more Ukrainian cities. And that's what it's been. Like last night, we saw ballistic missiles being used. Again, on cities. And now, okay, you can make the argument that, Ukraine, they sent drones into Russia. Yeah, military targets. Russia is going after civilian targets. There are clearly two different things going on here. And I think, when it comes to the United States, I think the White House is definitely understanding that Russia's the bad guy and we have to deal with Russia. Like JD Vance sat down in an interview today, essentially just saying that Russia's asking for too much.
I wouldn't say that the Russians are uninterested in bringing this thing to a resolution. What I would say is right now, the Russians are asking for a certain set of requirements, a certain set of concessions in order to end the conflict. We think they're asking for too much.
Russia, even up to 3 days ago, we saw Putin give his little speech talking about all the things he wants, and it's everything under the sun. There is no negotiation with Putin. Even we found out today, Keith Kellogg said that Zelenskyy and Ukraine came up with some kind of very good ground rules when it comes to a ceasefire, in which we know that Ukraine says, let's just freeze a line where it is and create a 30-kilometer wide demilitarized zone, in which 15 kilometers would be taken from the Russian-occupied territories and 15 from the Ukrainian-held territories. And there would be 30 miles there in which Russia and Ukraine can police it just for the time being, just so that we can have a ceasefire and start talking about things. But Russia said no. Putin said no. And so when you have Ukraine, who's now agreed to 4 ceasefires, and Russia didn't agree to any of them, and all these things that the U.S. proposed, that peace plan, Russia said no to, Europe, they said no to, Ukraine, they said no to. The United States are starting to wake up and realize that, look, we're trying diplomacy. It's not working out. It's not. Donald Trump pretty much just said that they're almost to the point where they're done communicating with Russia when it comes to peace negotiations only, because we're not getting anywhere. And we see that with Steve Witkoff, who's gone to Russia and meet with Putin now 4 different times. And ultimately, it's just a PR tour in which we're seeing Russia trying to sell things to the United States or say, hey, when this war is over, you could buy this, you could buy that. It's more or less a buddy-buddy conversation rather than a we need to end this war kind of conversation. And that's where we're at. We're going into this weekend where there's supposed to be a 3-day ceasefire with everyone saying that Russia's the bad guy, Russia not doing anything about it, and we're just sitting here. It doesn't make sense for Ukraine to give Russia 3 days when Russia's not going to relax for 3 days. Like Ukraine is currently in Kursk in 2 different areas. Okay? You really think that Russia's not going to try to push them out? And then at the same time, then Ukraine should be able to do that the same in Ukraine. And so this whole ceasefire, it's not happening. The United States is finally waking up, where they are approving new packages for Ukraine, in which the United States, they're getting paid for it. Zelenskyy made sure to say that. We also know that Ukraine's going to be getting new air defense systems, new Patriots. They're going to be from Israel. They're going to be refurbished first, of course, before then being sent over into Ukraine, because we're getting to a point now where Russia, they're understanding how to get through these Patriots 3 years into this, in which they know they can overwhelm the system with 168 drones and then send ballistic missiles in. The only way to be able to counter that is by more Patriots, more systems in the area to stop this so that civilians stop dying. And, we keep calling Russia or Putin a terrorist. And like today, I think was the first time we've seen a Trump administration official say that. And that was Scott Bessent, the U.S. Secretary, the Treasury Secretary, who was actually, he had a whole thing. You go check it out online in which he sat down with Congress. He answered the questions. And in it, he admitted, yeah, Putin is a terrorist.
We're asking the question about Russia. Do you consider Vladimir Putin a war criminal? Yes.
But he also says you have to be able to negotiate with these folks because he felt that like World War II would never ended if we never negotiated with Japan. And so we're seeing things like this, like Donald Trump talking about, well, maybe Russia could be a part of FIFA this 2026. It could be something they could use as a bargaining chip. The thing with Russia is I think we're at a point where negotiations isn't going to work. The only thing that's going to work is more pressure. And if we're still aiming for that December end date for this war, the pressure needs to start now as summer is starting to warm up. Before Russia starts their offensive this summer, before things start getting more explosive. At the same time, if you notice, Ukraine really hasn't targeted too many oil depots. You've noticed that, right? It might be time to say to Ukraine, go right ahead. If this can bring the war to an end faster, then please do so. Which leads us into this weekend. Do we actually think that drones won't be going to Russia? I actually don't think that Ukraine's actually going to be doing anything in the sense of doing deep dives into Russia. I don't think they would be doing that. But they did put out the stern warning that we can't protect you because we don't know what Russia's going to do. But let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. Please go ahead and share and repost my videos as we're trying to build up this YouTube channel. Just want to say I really appreciate everyone who comes and checks out these videos. You guys are awesome. I hope you're staying safe and sound, and I'll see you later.